Laura's key didn't turn. Jason opened the door holding a black trash bag. Chloe snatched the key ring from Laura's hand and threw it into the boxwood hedge. "Call a locksmith for the rest," she said. The door clicked shut. Laura didn't argue. She didn't cry either, not with Chloe watching for it. She picked the key ring out of the hedge herself, brushed off the mulch, and put it in her coat pocket without a word. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't look back at the house. She got in her car and pulled out of the driveway right at the speed limit, blinker on, like she was headed somewhere ordinary. Jason figured that was the end of it. He had no idea that 4 years from now, an HOA notice would take apart everything he owned, and Laura would be the one signing it. 3 years before any of that, the house on Cattlebrook Lane still had Laura's grandmother's name on the deed. Nana Ruth had left it to Laura when she passed, a low brick ranch in a subdivision outside Fort Worth called Hollow Creek Estates, the kind of place with a stone entrance sign, a community pool that closed at dusk, and an HOA newsletter that landed in every mailbox on the first of the month, whether anyone wanted it or not. Laura had grown up 2 streets over. She knew the house's weak floorboard in the hallway and the exact time of day the kitchen window caught the light. She married Jason 2 years after Nana Ruth died and moved him in without changing a thing about the paperwork. She just never got around to adding his name, not out of suspicion, just the ordinary put-a-toff of 2 people who were happy and didn't think they needed to be careful with each other yet. Jason worked in equipment sales, the kind of job with a company truck and an expense account he liked to mention. He bought a golf bag their first year together and used it twice. It sat in the garage after that, leaning in the corner where the lawn chairs should have gone, untouched enough that a spider built a web across the zipper pull and nobody ever cleared it. Chloe moved in the spring. Laura got pregnant. Just for a few months, Jason said, while she got her candle business off the ground. She brought 4 suitcases and a ring light. She changed the gate code without telling anyone and didn't share the new one for 11 days. She had opinions about which candles were allowed to be lit in the house. Hers, mostly, the ones she photographed for her page, and none about who paid for the wax. Laura noticed these things the way she noticed everything, quietly, filing them away instead of saying anything. She worked full days at a title company downtown, reading deeds and easements for a living, and she came home most nights to find Chloe's ring light still running in the guest room and Jason already asleep in front of the TV. The thermostat nudged down to 62 because Chloe said she ran hot. Nobody asked Laura if she was cold. By the time she was 6 months along, she'd stopped mentioning the thermostat. She started keeping a change of clothes in her car, told herself it was for the hospital bag, though she couldn't have said why she needed the master deed in the same tote as the burp cloths and the going-home outfit for the baby. 3 weeks later, she had a doctor's appointment on a Tuesday morning. She texted Jason on her way out, "Back around 11, don't forget trash day." He didn't text back. The first HOA notice came addressed to Jason 2 weeks after the party, a form letter about excessive noise and unregistered overnight guests, no mention of Chloe anywhere on it, since her name wasn't on anything. Jason set it on the kitchen counter under a growing stack of mail, and a month later, used the folded envelope to level a wobbly chair leg. Nobody wrote back to Hollow Creek Estates to explain who Chloe actually was. Nobody wrote back at all. She didn't think much of it that Tuesday. Jason forgot to text back all the time. 3 weeks before that, Chloe threw a candle launch party in the backyard, string lights, a folding table of product samples, 40-some people from her page that Laura had never met, standing in the grass past 11 on a school night. A patrol car rolled through the cul-de-sac around midnight. Nobody got a ticket. Chloe posted the whole thing anyway, captioned when the neighbors can't handle a good time. The HOA newsletter that came the following week had a paragraph about quiet hours that named no names and everyone understood anyway. Jason moved $8,000 out of their joint savings that same month into an account with Chloe's business name on it, then $12,000 more 6 weeks later for what he called inventory. Laura found both transfers on the bank app one night while Chloe's ring light hummed through the wall. She brought it up at breakfast the next morning, calm, "Just a question, what's the plan for paying that back?" And Jason told her she was making a big deal out of nothing. It was family, and Chloe rolled her eyes into her coffee and said something about how some people never learn to relax around money. Laura let it go, not because she agreed, because arguing with Jason lately felt like arguing with Chloe wearing Jason's face, and she was 8 months from her due date and out of the kind of energy that fight would cost her. So when the door clicked shut behind her on Cattlebrook Lane that Tuesday morning, key ring in her coat pocket, Laura already had a folder in her trunk. Not a plan, exactly. She hadn't let herself think that far. Just papers she'd quietly been keeping somewhere Chloe wouldn't find them. Her grandmother's original deed, the title company's copy of the survey, a folder of bank statements with Jason's transfers highlighted in yellow. She didn't drive to a hotel. She drove 11 minutes to her sister Denise's duplex on the other side of Loop 820, sat in the driveway a minute with both hands on the wheel, then went in and told Denise she needed the guest room for a while. Denise didn't ask many questions that first night. She put on a pot of coffee neither of them drank and sat across the kitchen table while Laura laid the folder out, corner by corner, like she was diffusing something. The deed was still in her grandmother's name, Ruth Ann Whitfield, never transferred, never touched. Laura ran her thumb over the notary stamp at the bottom, half faded, and didn't say anything for a while. "You knew this was coming," Denise said. "It wasn't a question." "I knew something was coming," Laura said. "I didn't know it'd be today." Maya was born 6 weeks later in October, 3 weeks early, in a hospital 40 minutes from the house Laura had grown up half a mile from. Jason didn't come. Chloe posted a candle called New Beginnings that same week, unscented, $42. The blow-up happened on a Sunday, 6 weeks before Laura's due date. It started small, Laura mentioning again that the business account was overdrawn, and could they maybe hold off on more inventory until after the baby came. Chloe said Laura had never once been happy for her. Jason said Laura was being a lot lately, which was a phrase he'd started using that summer, always right after Chloe left the room. Laura didn't raise her voice. She said her piece once, calmly, and went to bed. Chloe filmed part of it anyway, just Laura's face, mid-sentence, captioned later for her page as dealing with negativity during a launch week. 40,000 people watched it. Laura never saw the video. Denise did, and didn't tell her for a year. By Monday morning, Chloe had convinced Jason of something simpler than the truth, that the house ran better without Laura's questions in it. Jason liked simple that summer. He'd stopped opening the mail from the bank. He told himself Laura would come around once the baby settled things down, and in the meantime, some space might do everyone good. Neither of them checked whose name was actually on the deed. It hadn't occurred to Jason to ask, in 6 years of marriage, and Chloe assumed a husband's house was a husband's house. They had the locksmith come Tuesday morning, while Laura was at her OB appointment 3 miles away, and told each other it was temporary. A cooling off. Something they'd explain properly once tempers settled. They did not explain it properly. They never got the chance to. Laura spent her first 2 months at Denise's filling out title company paperwork by day and monitoring baby monitors by night, alone in the sense that mattered, surrounded in the sense that didn't. Maya slept in a bassinet wedged between Denise's treadmill and a stack of moving boxes neither sister ever unpacked. Laura went back to work 6 weeks after the birth because the maternity leave from a company that small didn't stretch further than that. She filed for divorce in December, quietly, through a lawyer Denise found her, and asked for nothing from the marriage except her name off Jason's mistakes. The house was never part of the negotiation. Nobody's lawyer thought to bring it up, because nobody's lawyer had read the deed the way Laura had, every night, in the 6 months before she finally understood what she was looking at. She started studying for the Texas HOA Board certification the following spring, not for any plan she could have explained out loud yet, just because Hollow Creek's management company posted an opening on the board, and the exam prep was free through the state's Community Association Institute, and Laura had always been good at reading fine print for a living. She studied after Maya went down for the night, at Denise's kitchen table, the same table where she'd once laid out the deed. She passed on her second try. Back on Cattlebrook Lane, the thermostat stayed at 62 through 2 more winters, though there was no one left to complain about the cold. Chloe's candle business folded in its second year, $41,000 of Jason's, savings gone with it, replaced by a skincare line that folded faster. Jason picked up a second job delivering auto parts on weekends and stopped mentioning the expense account. The parties never really stopped. They just got smaller and later, and the neighbors got tireder of calling about them. The first real violation notice, the kind with a fine attached, not just a strongly worded paragraph in the newsletter, arrived at the house in March, 4 months after Laura passed her certification exam. It cited unregistered occupants, 3 prior noise complaints, and an unpermitted string light installation strung between the garage and a tree that technically belonged to the property next door. Jason folded the notice into a coaster and never once wondered who, exactly, was going to be reading it on the other end. Laura's first year on the board, she said almost nothing in meetings. She read the bylaws twice over, the way she read everything, and made a note every time somebody proposed something that wasn't actually allowed under the covenants. By her second year, people started asking her to check things before votes. By her third, she was running the compliance committee, the one that handled violation letters, fine schedules, and liens. She recognized the address on Cattlebrook Lane the first time it crossed her desk. She didn't say anything about it to anyone. She just followed the same process she followed for every file: documented, dated, sent by certified mail, 30 days to respond or appeal. Nobody at that house ever appealed. The March notice turned into a fine, $300, the standard rate for a first cited violation, due in 30 days. It went unpaid. The board's bylaws called for the fine to double every cycle it stayed unpaid, plus a processing fee, plus, after 90 days, referral to the association's attorney, whose fees got added straight to the balance. Chloe kept hosting. Jason kept not opening envelopes with the management company's return address on them. 2 more noise complaints turned into 2 more line items. A permit violation for an unregistered shed got its own file. By the second year, the number on the account had climbed past $6,000, and the association had recorded a lien against the property, routine paperwork, filed at the county courthouse. The kind of thing that shows up on a title search and nowhere else, so nobody in that house had any reason to go looking for it. Laura was elected board president that October, unopposed. Nobody ran against her because nobody else wanted to spend their Tuesday nights reading easement law. The balance on Cattlebrook Lane kept climbing the way debt does when nobody's paying attention to it. A special assessment for a storm-damaged retaining wall that every homeowner owed a share of missed twice, late fees stacking on late fees. The attorney's hourly rate added every time a letter went out and got no response. By the start of Laura's 4th year on the board, the file that had started as a $300 noise citation had grown into a folder 2 inches thick, and the number at the bottom of the ledger read 45,340.12. Texas HOA law gave the association a narrow set of tools for a debt that size, and Laura knew every one of them from the exam she'd studied for at Denise's kitchen table. A lien didn't force anyone out. A lien just sat there, quiet, until somebody tried to sell or refinance, or until the board voted to enforce it. Enforcement meant a hearing. A hearing meant notice, by certified mail, to every name on the deed, informing them of the date, the amount owed, and their right to appear. The management company mailed that notice to Cattlebrook Lane on a Thursday in June. Laura signed off on the mailing list herself, the way she signed off on every mailing list, without reading each name individually, because there were 40-some houses in arrears that quarter, and hers was one file among many on a Tuesday afternoon. Jason opened this one. Something about the words "final, notice of lien enforcement" hearing in the top corner got past whatever system he'd built for ignoring the rest of his mail. He read it twice at the kitchen table, then read the dollar figure a third time out loud to Chloe, who said it had to be a mistake, that HOAs didn't actually do this to people, that somebody should call somebody. Nobody they called could make the number smaller. The hearing was set for the second Tuesday of July, 7 p.m., at the Hollow Creek Estates Clubhouse, the same clubhouse with the pool that closed at dusk, 4 doors down from the house they used to share with Laura. They walked in 9 minutes late, Jason in his delivery uniform, because he'd come straight from a shift, Chloe already talking about how she wasn't going to sit here and be lectured by strangers about noise ordinances. Neither of them looked at the folding table set up at the front of the room before they sat down. Jason didn't recognize the woman at the head of the folding table until she looked directly at him. 4 years and the fluorescent lighting had changed some things about her face, but not the way she held her hands, folded and still, when she had something to say and wasn't going to rush it. Mr. Whitfield Cole, the board's secretary read from the docket, using the name on file. You're here regarding assessment case 2026-341, Cattlebrook Lane. Laura didn't say hello. She didn't need to. She let the association's attorney walk through the file first, the way she'd insisted on doing it months earlier, when this hearing first landed on her calendar, and she'd realized whose address was attached to it. He read the violation history out loud, one line at a time. The noise complaints, the unregistered shed, the 2 years of accruing interest, the total now standing at $45,340.12. Chloe's legs started bouncing under the table around the 4th citation. Then the attorney mentioned the title report, a routine step ordered automatically before any lien enforcement hearing to confirm exactly who held ownership interest in the property being foreclosed on. He said the report had come back with an irregularity worth noting for the record. The deed on file at the county recorder's office had never been transferred out of the name Ruth Ann Whitfield. Not to Jason, not to Chloe, to anyone. That property's been in my family since before I was born, Laura said. It was the first thing she'd said directly to either of them all evening. I never took Jason's name off nothing, because his name was never on it to begin with. She reached into a folder at her elbow, the same worn folder she'd carried out of that house 4 years earlier, the one that had sat in Denise's hall closet ever since, and set the original recorded deed on the table between them. Her grandmother's signature. The notary stamp, still legible. Laura's own name listed as sole heir, filed the year after Ruth Ann passed, years before Jason ever moved a golf bag into that garage. Chloe started to say something ugly. She got about 4 words into it before Laura raised one hand, not sharply, just enough, and asked the clubhouse's part-time security guard, a retired postal worker named Gary who mostly handled pool badge disputes, to see her to the door if she couldn't keep her voice down in a public meeting. Chloe left. Jason didn't. The board voted to record the lien as satisfied, since Laura, as the property's actual owner, settled the balance herself that night rather than let interest keep compounding against her own equity. Then, separately, as the owner of record, she signed the notice that mattered more. A formal demand for Jason and Chloe to vacate a property they had never held any legal right to occupy in the first place. A constable served the writ 2 weeks later. Nobody made a scene. There wasn't one left to make. Laura moved back into the house on Cattlebrook Lane that September, 4 years almost to the day since she'd walked out of it with a diaper bag and a manila folder. She turned the thermostat up to 68 the first night and left it there. She cleared out the golf bag, spiderweb and all, and gave the garage back to the lawn chairs. Maya, 4 years old now, picked her own room, the one that used to be the guest room, where a ring light had once run all night. Laura never told Jason the deed had been sitting in a folder the whole time. She never had to. The county recorder already knew. Would you have kept quiet for 4 whole years, letting the paperwork and the law do the work for you? Or would you have confronted them on day 1? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more true confessions and silent payback. This is Casterly Payback. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode.